just a little noisy out here. I'm sorry. But it just rained. This is a rain-scented incense, so it's a sign. Or at least I'm making it a sign. Hey, there's a vibe out here, and we're gonna go with it. Plus, I need to spend more time outdoors. There's snails everywhere, and I feel like the snails are a symbol for what we're going to talk about, and it sounds silly. What the hell could snails have to do with this? I'll tell you what. There's no short story to this. So basically, these snails, they come out when it peaks, and I live in like not necessarily like a drought area at all. It's pretty green out here. I mean, there's birds chirping, but we don't get that much rain. But when the rain does hit, these snails come out to play, and there's like so many of them, and they like leave behind their shells in the grass when they're done. And there's just like thousands of these tiny little snail shells like everywhere. So you know, they're ambitious little creatures. When the weather changes, they do not stall. They just come out. That is the scariest hornet I have ever seen. Please don't come this way. It's coming this way. Yeah. So basically, it's really about shifting gears and being prepared for not necessarily the worst, but being prepared for bad situations and good ones. So just being able to not necessarily, I don't know, I guess maybe not chime on a dime or turn on a dime or whatever, but just being able to really go with the changes that are presented. So like if the weather changes and it just abruptly starts to pour rain, these snails, they're not gonna snail around. Well, I mean, they are because they're snails, but they're not gonna be hesitant about coming out. And, okay, they're a little slow, so they might be a little hesitant. But the point is they're going to come out and utilize this time in the rain to drink up and get whatever nourishment they can from the rain. I don't know why they like the rain, but they like the rain. That's the point. They come out during the rain. They don't stop. Well, never mind. Anyway, so changing with the seasons is like one of those sayings we hear all the time, and it's like, yeah, we hear it, but it doesn't really, it has like, I don't know, it doesn't have a whole lot of value until things actually shift. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's what I was being prepared for. So you don't even go through the realization of anything or like being actually prepared for the change. It just sort of comes. And this, my friend, is actually what true bliss feels like, because honestly, not even having to be prepared for the change is like the true surrender to the universe anyway, where we don't have to kind of have like any anxiety or second guessing or thoughts beyond like what's going on in the present moment. There's a little bit of preparedness because, let's be honest, we're gonna prepare for things. But the thing is, when you really surrender and understand that shifts and change and like losing people, places, and things, like relationships, friendships, and just cutting ties with things, that is actually a true blessing in disguise. It doesn't really ever feel like it at first, but it really opens us up to have more space for things that that need to exist around us for us to start really blossoming and striving, thriving, you know? So in order to really kind of like, and I almost saw this post. I started cracking up laughing earlier at work. I saw this post earlier. And it was basically about getting triggered beyond repair. This is what it said. Being triggered beyond repair. And then basically so you end up finally seeing the person that you romanticized for so long for who they really are. And I thought that was pretty humorous because, oh God. But it was very, it's very valid because you really like, and even if you're not necessarily like, romanticizing or fantasizing who they are, like you kind of put them in like this grace threshold of existence where you don't really judge them so much for their actions. And I get not wanting to do that, but at the same time, like, judging people for their actions is also a judgment of character and is necessary to navigate through life because we judge people by their character every single day and every second of the day, probably, and maybe not every second, but we do it very, very often. It's a necessary tool for communication and understanding people and safety and boundaries and all sorts of other things. Like, it's necessary, like, but at the same time we put friends and relationships or partners in these like pedestals. They're not even necessarily always pedestals, but we give them this like all these like, and I won't even say tokens, we just kind of like brush things off, and we just kind of are like, well, okay. And I get doing that too, and at the same time, we should, allow people to have mistakes and stuff. But sometimes there's this pattern that we really gotta start recognizing, and if we don't recognize it, it becomes a karmic situationship. And so this is what's really important about recognizing karmic energy and just what a situationship really is, because it sounds silly, like the word itself. I feel like it can sound silly, but it's actually really important to understand, because understanding it can help you, shift and navigate where you don't have to keep going through these patterns and meeting the same people and having this same situation be presented in front of you. Sometimes it really just takes like this click of acknowledgement. And well, maybe acknowledgement isn't the only part of it, but it is really, really honestly a big step. And if you acknowledge it, you got to be honest and raw about the acknowledgement. You can't just say you acknowledge it, just brush it off. That's not the point of acknowledging a problem. You acknowledge it and then you shift gears into facing the problem and really kind of maybe weighing things out if it's worth it, or what you can do to kind of shift gears to focus back on yourself or remove yourself from a situation. Whatever it is, there's a million different things. But like, we have to make better judgment, and making better judgment allows us to have this freedom of not dealing with more chaos in our life. So like, who doesn't want that freedom? That is time, my friend. Time is money. Money can be pleasure, it can be food, it can be all of the good things in life. So I'm just saying, like, just saying, money ain't everything. But when you're giving people your time, you're giving them money. I'm just saying. So just think of it that way. And then you'll be like, ah, that's what that silly word girl meant. It's okay. I meant you well, I did. Because really, it's not necessarily about the money itself, but it's really like, we have such limited time here on earth, and hearing that is just like words. But when you actually, like, we use money every single day consistently, and so we have this real value for money because it's a necessity. It's something that we have to work for and put energy and time and effort into, so it has much more measurable value than just saying like, well, we're all gonna die, so let's utilize our time here on earth. We could just be sitting on a bench somewhere making a weird YouTube video for complete strangers that never hit the like or subscribe button. But you know, it's okay. We all make choices with our time. It's just you really oh god. When you start actually seeing like some of the cycles that you've been in, you'll really see how much time you've wasted on so many people. And you know, and I'm not trying to like be a Debbie Downer or tell you like, oh god, how much time you've wasted. But if you really start seeing that you can kind of function your life and shift your life towards being much more productive and utilizing your time and effort to focusing on like self-care and just growth, growing, building something, just upgrading your life in general, you have so much more freedom that way. Not having to deal with, you know, toxic people. But for at some point in level, all toxic, so you have to kind of always kind of have like this weight bag and you want to put some marbles in it and you just want to count the marbles. Have two bags and put one marble in the bag, and if it starts to get too heavy for everything you're putting up with, maybe you should think about putting the marble sack down and just carrying one sack or something. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if we're having to like do all of these things and make so much space for other people, I mean, some of that can seem or sound a little harsh or mean, but at the same time, like, we gotta like put our energy and focus it back on ourselves. We can't like cater to everything and everyone around us. It's not realistic, and it's, you know, at some point, like, you know, what that person could just be like, you know, a phase or a fade, like a pebble in your life, in existence. Maybe that they get, you know, called to move somewhere, and like it's like your focus should never be on another individual anyway. And so recognizing how much energy and effort and just, you know, stress, and not even just stress, but just like, you know, how much let's just put it this way, stress, how much stress you have to really kind of combat with or compete with in order to have somebody around. Like, you gotta start realizing that some people are actually energy vampires, and we gotta put people where they actually are and just kind of step away from situationships, because there's a million bazillion other people out there. That's kind of I think an exaggerative number, but you know, there's a lot of people out there that we can meet and greet, and if we spend all this time and energy in one place, we'll never have time for the other place. So simple math. I hope. Probably wasn't that simple, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to be as soft as I possibly can, because I know that cutting ties with people can be exhausting, frustrating, sad, and not exactly what we hope for or want in life. But sometimes we really gotta see people for the karmic lesson that they may have been teaching us. And I do say that brutally and harshly, but also nicely. But you gotta see people for face value sometimes. And sometimes they're just, it's too much effort in a situation. So just realize that, you know, taking a step back from these karmic situations will, one, help you learn to kind of prioritize yourself, but also approach these situations with a much more broadened eyesight and wisdom and intuition, so you can learn to navigate relationships and friendships without having these like core attachments to people, and just you can have acquaintances in your life, and you won't have to worry so much about like the bonds, the attachments, and just the silly things that create drama. Trauma is not very avoidable in life, and given a situation, this is something I learned recently too, from a life lesson, a very hard one. So you can't just, things are never ever gonna go the way you expect, but sometimes the complete unexpected happens and you shift gears in a very dramatic way, and you don't understand or realize why something happened the way that it did, but it did for the right, maybe not the right reasons, but ultimately for the right cause. Because sometimes people can be very attached to drama and darkness and just dragging other people down with them. And it's not to say that we shouldn't have empathy for those people, but those type of people are in these cycles because they perpetuate their own cycles too. So you can't really benefit from trying to help somebody in that situation, because they're going to continuously need help, or they're not going to take the help, or it's just not going to connect with real healing. And so that's when they become the energy vampire. So you gotta realize that we can't help and save everybody. And sometimes, even when we've known somebody our entire life, as hard as it may be, sometimes it's just best to cut ties with situations, especially from your past, things that may have some like core attachments to your past. Those could be really strong, heavy life lessons. Aren't necessarily always, but it's good to look out for, to recognize those patterns so they're not repeated. As long as they're not unhealthy patterns, you really don't have to worry so much about like recognizing that sort of thing. But you know what I mean, I hope. So karmic ties, like, you really have to, if you really want to just kind of energetically cleanse yourself, you can do this in so many different ways. But setting the intention, the strong intention that you want to clear a way, clear a path, and utilize this sort of like energetic freedom to bring in what's actually meant for you, will do a lot of cleansing, first of all, like energetic cleansing, baths, sage your house, sage your soul, sage your bathroom, sage your car, just sage your entire lifespan and just start over. It's okay. You don't have to do all of the things to really reset. These are just examples and ways to just activate this sort of thing. There's so many different ways. You can just do the actions and utilize the intention just by actually doing that. That's like some high level gear stuff, I'm just saying. But yeah, you should definitely start making some actions to clear some things out. But like literally cleaning your house, cleaning your room, making recycling, getting rid of clutter, selling your old stuff, and just kind of refreshing yourself, i.e. the spiritual bath, the spiritual shower. Like, those things cleanse you, and energetically you feel fresh, you feel awakened, but you also can see, physically experience the space that you have for more things to enter into your life. Even if you're not going to replace an entire closet, I'm not saying you should go on a shopping spree. I'm also not saying that you shouldn't. There's a beautiful cardinal. That's your sign to go on a shopping spree. But you have this newfound freedom, this newfound space from clearing out all the clutter, And it's like this lifted weight that you can physically feel from doing the action of cleaning your room. So I'm just saying, incense, you can incense yourself. You can write down like this long paragraph or a story, journal, and just kind of set this intention like verbally or mentally, and just put it out there that you want to change, you want to shift gears, and things will start to come into alignment. Now, you will have these tower moments. I'm not saying this to scare you, but you're going to lose a lot of things. And it's okay, because you don't really want to think of it that way anyway, but just getting rid of stuff to make space for new things. Bruce agrees. Don't you there, bud? Yeah, Bruce agrees. You gotta make space for the new stuff. Ain't that right? So just imagine yourself shifting towards a new timeline. How would you do that? You would have to change gears, you would have to change jobs, you would have to have this actual impact in your life that would force you to shift gears. And so that's why when we set those strong intentions, we often do lose a lot of things, so we can just cut ties with basically everything and just start over fresh. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, so I'm saying don't force it either. Just go with the flow energetically, trust your intuition. And, you know, if things are getting removed from your life, don't think of it as a bad thing, is basically my point. Don't think of it as something negative. Think of it as an alignment for you to make space for things in your life. So it's not negative. Don't force the change either. Don't just quit your job and quit all these things and just move to Nebraska. I don't recommend moving to Nebraska. Unless you like the cold, I don't know. But I'm just saying, it's not a bad thing. Making these karmic ties, or snipping these karmic ties, I should say, is actually what's going to clear up things. And it's not going to be in a way where it's just going to leave them empty either. It's just going to allow this opening for the things that were meant for you and the things that you had originally signed up for on your shift. Because we all chose lifespans. And it's all coming together. We just gotta make the shift. Okay, I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Bruce is about to bark at the FedEx guy. Okay, bye.